Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. Isn't this exciting? Mm-hmm. Carolyn, why don't we just go down the line? Everyone can introduce themselves and their organization, and then Carolyn, you can kick it off with your exciting report.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Carolyn Grossman. I'm the Director of Regional Planning at the New York City Department of City Planning.
Good morning, Sue Rosenthal with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, and I lead our life sciences and healthcare team.
Good morning, everyone. Sho Islam with Advanced CT. I'm the Director of Business Development there, leading the life sciences.
Good morning. Excuse me. My name is Sanjeevani Vidwans. I'm Deputy Director for the Department of Housing, Economic Development, and Commerce in the city of Jersey City.
And we have a couple of virtual speakers as well. Cathy?
Good morning. I'm Cathy Scangrila of Choose New Jersey, Chief Business Development Officer, and I head up our life sciences work.
Thank you. And Bridget?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Bridget Gibbons, Director of Economic Development for Westchester County.
Terrific. So we have a broad representation from the public sector to tell you about what's happening in the industry in the greater New York metro area. Carolyn?
Sure. Well, thank you again, Nancy, for having me here, and great to be with old friends and new. I'll start out by saying I'm probably the least life science professional in the room. I'm a regionalist. I head a Department of Regional Planning within city planning in New York City, which was founded by the de Blasio administration back in 2015 as a way of helping New York City get smart about our role in the region and really to put our data and analytics strength and our relationship and capacity building and our planning support really towards those kinds of challenges that really require thinking at the regional scale. And so we've been doing that in a lot of different ways. And life sciences has really been on our radar, I think, from the beginning, because it was sort of obvious to us that this is an industry that is really functioning at the metropolitan scale. So if we're able to pull up a few slides.
Actually, do you have a clicker right next to you?
Is
you
this
might
a
even be
clicker?
able to use that.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
So what do I mean by that? Well, I want to start at what we mean by the region. This is a picture of the New York City metropolitan region's economy as we understand it. Those dots are each 250 jobs. They're color-coded to different industry groups. Green is local services, purple is industrial jobs, yellow is education and healthcare, blue is office-based. So what I would draw your attention to on this, this covers 3 counties. We're looking at basically 75 miles in every direction from New York City Hall. This is the largest economy in the country, obviously. This is, if our region were a country, our economy would have the GDP of South Korea. 50% of that GDP is generated inside of New York City. 50% of that GDP is generated outside of New York City. So New York City, undoubtedly the center, the most important economic engine for our region. But our region is also an engine for us. And those relationships in that ecosystem has really been what's sustained our entire economy's growth together. Life sciences cuts across all of these industry groups, right? When we're talking about research and development, we're talking about industrial manufacturing, we're talking about lab space. We're really cutting across all of our different industry groups. So, it struck us that many people who are looking at our life sciences economy are not looking at this full regional scale in our region. Though when we look at Boston, we typically look at the Boston region, we look at Bay Area, we typically look at the Bay Area region. So we took a look at that same geography to see what we could see about what's happening in our life sciences economy. And unsurprisingly, because we are the largest economy in the country, we are also the largest life sciences economy in the country when you count us all together. 144,000 jobs, 20% more jobs than the next metro, 35% more businesses than the next leading metro. Again, when you consider all of these clusters together, New York, New Jersey, Southwest Connecticut, Long Island, there's a lot of employment happening here. There's a lot of businesses that are happening here. We're number 1 in talent. Although our metro is home to about 7% of the United States metro population, we have 15% of the biochemists and biophysicists, about 10% of US chemists overall. We've got over 20,000 clinical lab workers. It's about a quarter of our life sciences technical occupations. And this is really split up across our region. 30% of that work those workers are living in New York City, 40% are living in northern New Jersey, and the rest are split between the other wings of our region. Looking at investment, we are number one in NIH funding. When you compare us to the other metros, we're at $3.5 billion. Boston's at 2.8. The Bay Area is at 1.5. 70% of that regional NIH funding is coming to New York City-based organizations and institutions. But again, 30% then is coming to outside the region, right? So all together is how we're getting to be, very massive in size. Our VC funding still behind the other two leading metros, but growing at a much more accelerated pace. 3.3 billion in funding in last counts. And when you look at, again, the geography of where that investment is all happening, it is highly, highly clustered at the center of the region. You see that Manhattan and the interior of New York City are extraordinarily important to that funding picture, but surrounded by a constellation of other important and growing clusters. We see in Westchester, the areas around Regeneron and sort of mid-county. We see Yale and the Connecticut coast. We see a constellation coming down the New Jersey rail system into New Brunswick and Princeton. We see the Long Island Railroad connections out all the way to Stony Brook. So this really is a regional picture, and I think we have learned, and in our conversations, and I'm so glad to be here with our colleagues from New Jersey and Connecticut and Westchester, in addition to my colleagues from New York City, of course. We playing favorites, I think it's okay. Because I think we're all coming to recognize that picture, right? That there is value in us understanding that we are stronger as a collective, even as we all very much, are pursuing the missions and the growth strategies of our own individual political jurisdictions.
Great. So that was news to me, and I hope it's news to all of you. Really gives us something to be excited about and to work together around. So Sue, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the EDC's been up to? You've been busy the last 5 years.
Yes, we have. Also, tough act to follow. It's really amazing data to see, and just so compelling. And one of the jobs that we have collectively is to shift the perception. And I think data like what Carolyn just shared give us the data we need to be able to do that. Our region is incredibly a source of growth in life sciences. New York City has made a clear stake in this industry for many years now. So what I'd like to do is just share how we're doing as that stake has been put in, and what we're thinking about for the future as we grow more. So if you pull up my set of slides, hopefully. We can share what I plan to talk about. There we go. I'll share just where we've been very briefly, what we learned over the past couple of years, and where we're going in the future. I think everyone is familiar with some of the work that's been done from long ago that really laid the foundation for New York. And you can see this is before the formal announcement of Life Sci NYC that took place in 2016, one of the reasons why we made this investment. There are incredible institutions in New York. Carolyn shared the data of NIH funding, and we want to take the innovations that happen at those institutions and help make them into bigger companies and growth opportunities and jobs for New Yorkers and the region around us. And so we started early on. There were investments, whether in incubators like Harlem Biospace or in commercial space with Alexandria. We what I would call dabbled in life sciences as a city. And then because we did a lot of research and we saw the growth starting to percolate, we made this bigger investment in 2016 with the initial $500 million of various city capital and other financial levers from the city. And since then, we have been quite busy. And so you can see everything that is in orange and in purple have evolved since then. So we have a number of incubators across the city. We have a number of buildings that have put in place the commercial space, the lab spaces that you need. And we're seeing thinking to those, the need for a cluster development and for both talent to attract to and for companies to grow in, we're seeing not only what's highlighted in orange, which is now we're calling Life Sci Avenue, on the east side, that's going from Kips Bay up into the Upper East Side, but we're also seeing what we're starting to call this spine on the west side as well, whether that's down in Hudson Square, in Midtown West, and then up to West Harlem with Columbia and many of the commercial activities happening all the way up into the northern Manhattan spaces. And then outside of Manhattan, we're seeing clusters develop in Long Island City, in Brooklyn, and these are, I'm talking a lot about real estate footprint, but this is really where companies are growing. So we're seeing an incredible number of companies share their Series A's, their Series B's, their Series C's, their IPOs. We're seeing the numbers start to match what we're seeing in Cambridge and other areas, the 100 million, the 200 million. And over this past year, or 2 years, I should say, we hit quite a shock. But that shock from COVID really just showed the value of life sciences. Everyone in here knows that life sciences essentially came to the rescue as our planet, our world has been going through this crisis. And so the community of life sciences has certainly responded by increasing the amount of investment in life sciences, whether that's VC funding or NIH funding continues to go up. But we're seeing as a result the life sciences companies in New York at this point doubling from the last pre-pandemic. And so if you would count it on your hands, maybe 5 years ago, how many life sciences companies, or 10 years ago, are there in New York? You would use your hands, and you could maybe borrow a hand from your neighbor. Now we're in the hundreds. Pre-pandemic, we did a bit of research. We saw New York has at least 150 companies. Post-pandemic, we're post 300, and again, those raises are growing. And it's really important that we do this together across the region because talent is what builds an industry. You can't build life sciences without the talent that goes with it. We have people that come in from New Jersey and Connecticut. We have people from the city that go out to New Jersey and Connecticut. And so we think in order for us to really take this opportunity, we should do it very collectively. And so from there, where are we going from here? So we saw this value, we saw the resiliency of this from an economic perspective, and so the city is responding by doubling that investment. And in June, we announced that we will be investing $1 billion in life sciences to build more infrastructure, to help companies grow, and to unlock the spaces that are needed and the talent, develop the talent for it as well. And so coming up, we've announced some very recent projects, whether that's expanding BioBat or launching our Pandemic Response Institute, which we announced a couple of weeks ago with Columbia and CUNY. We have put in place some of these investments and the spaces continue to open. So InnoLabs and Deerfield's Cure, a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, we put the support in for it, and now those doors are opening and we're seeing tenants come into those spaces as we speak, which is really exciting. And to the talent, we need to keep doing that together as well. So whether that's by hosting interns or developing the next set of serial entrepreneurs, it's a really important element of making this successful. And so I look forward to talking to all of you at various points about how we can do that together.
Terrific. It's really interesting because we continued our programming throughout the pandemic, as you know, because we featured you many times. And what was interesting about it is that the life science companies never stopped.
That's very correct.
They just kept going all the way through and even accelerated their activity, which was really wonderful to see. Yeah. I know about 3/4 of the way through, we hosted biolabs, and their companies were starting to, they'd raised lots of money. They were starting to graduate. It was a really exciting story.
Yeah.
So. And
it's just, we're so thankful to all of the companies that first off did that from a resiliency and supporting the livelihoods of their people, but also in our response to COVID. We were able to do help in the response with the city's test and trace and vaccination programs because of the willingness of the companies out in our ecosystems to help us. And so whether it's by helping us build a lab or helping us make viral transport media or whatever it was, the New York ecosystem stepped up. And so we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, it was terrific to see. Cathy Scangrila is next. She's going to tell us a little bit about Choose New Jersey.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having me virtually. It's really appreciated. So I could start if you can put up my slides. We see New Jersey as the state of innovation, and much of that innovation comes from our long history with life sciences companies. New Jersey is home to 13 of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies and a growing biotech hub with new companies starting up every day.
Next slide.
So New York has, I'm sorry, we have a great history of innovation with over 100 years of birthplace of immunology, the first ever CAR T cell therapy in New Jersey, the first FDA-approved 3D printing drug. We really are proud of our history in life sciences. Next slide. Our ecosystem is diverse and expansive, with more than 600 contract research organizations and contract manufacturing organizations. And New Jersey has the highest concentration of specialized commercialized expertise in the US. Nearly 23,000 members of the state's life science cluster are focused on pharmaceutical and biologics manufacturing. That's 3 times the national average. Next slide. Here's just some of our stats that we're really proud of, and I think what makes us really strong in life sciences and really helps make the region strong is that we have over 3,200 life science establishments in the state. Next slide. And as you just saw, New Jersey is ranked number 2 in the state for biotech strength, and many companies are pioneering cell and gene therapy breakthroughs. Our cell and gene therapy hub is quickly growing. Next slide. I just wanted to point out, what's making our cell and gene therapy talent workforce really stellar. New Jersey's higher education institutes are on the forefront of the next generation of therapeutics. New Jersey Institute of Technology is really preparing our workforce, and they have a new institute called Biocentric. This is an industry-facing contract development and manufacturing facility to bring cell and gene therapies to market. And just a little bit of what's new. Next slide. So we have a robust incubator and research hubs growing in New Jersey, and I've just a few here to mention. We have right outside of Manhattan is On3, which is quickly becoming a center, and Hackensack Meridian's medical school is there. Princeton West, which is a former BMS campus that is turned into a biologic product development and clinical manufacturing site with over 24 buildings, over 900,000 square feet, and 35-acre sites that are available. And the up-and-coming hub in New Brunswick, the groundbreaking ceremony just took place last month. It brings together academic research, leading startup companies, large corporate pioneers to downtown New Brunswick, right across from the train station. And the first core tenants are Rutgers University, Princeton University, Hackensack Meridian Healthcare, Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas, and Rutgers Medical School will be moving there as well. So it's really going to be a beautiful center. It's going to be available in, we think, 2024. And I'll let my colleague from Jersey City tell all the good news, what's going on there. Thank you.
Yeah, so Cathy, what's really interesting in terms of New Jersey is the kind of metamorphosis that it's gone through in the last 10 years from the large suburban pharma campuses where all of the R&D was done internally, kind of for one-size-fits-all drugs, and then seeing the movement of pharma off of those suburban campuses toward more urban areas near academic institutions, and moving their R&D there, and then seeing the smaller companies and the contract manufacturers kind of moving into New Jersey behind them. It's been quite the journey, but the economy is really so much more vibrant now.
Yeah, we've really seen a huge difference, and it brings opportunities for new areas for smaller manufacturing facilities for biotech companies and cell and gene therapy companies. So it's really been great.
Terrific. Well, thank you for sharing that. Sho?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Again, as everyone says, our region is really growing and great to be part of it. Connecticut is here for the first time. It is a growing sector, the life sciences industry in Connecticut. So I just wanted to kind of level set and go over just some of the information and ways that Connecticut is really contributing to our region growing steadfastly. And so there we go. Just to level set, it's about 1,400 companies in Connecticut focused on biosciences, employing roughly around 23,000 people. Connecticut is heavy in R&D. That's our contribution really to the region. A lot of R&D money goes into it. 80% of our R&D spending is towards biosciences. And our contribution to the region, if you look at there, just top 5 in the country. Depends on the category and how you look at it. Per capita, it's number 2 in the country for academic bioscience R&D. Patents, we're really good. So these are just some of the areas in which we're contributing to the region and its growth in life sciences. Connecticut, if you look at the map, there's really 3 clusters that's developed for life sciences. The largest being the New Haven area, as mentioned, anchored by Yale University and all the IP and spin-outs that are really coming out of there. Folks there are doing phenomenal jobs, averaging 5 to 10 spin-outs at least over the last 5 years or so. So that's where our biggest concentration is. Our second would be the greater Farmington. And that's kind of anchored by Jackson Laboratories, UConn, University of Connecticut Health, and the likes that are there. So we're seeing a lot of concentration there. And the third, also important and closest to New York City, of course, is Stamford, where we're seeing the proximity to New York and the talent really going back and forth. So the geographic lines really don't matter. Folks are commuting and getting jobs where it's appropriate. We're seeing digital health really take effect there and take a foothold there. If you look at the companies that we have on board, Connecticut does have a share of large companies that everyone knows of, like the likes of Pfizer, BI, and the others. Also developing ones like Rally Bio or Azitra. So these are focuses that are companies that are growing, innovating, and really building the density for the state that we believe is necessary to contribute even greater portion to the region's economy and life science. Again, as we talked about NIH funding, our region is really, really hammering it home. And if we just focus on Connecticut as a whole, you can look at the 5-year trend line and how those numbers are going. So we're doing phenomenal on those fronts, led, of course, by Yale, UConn, Jack's Lab, if you see the breakout on the left there. And then on a per capita basis, I always joke that Connecticut is a per capita state because we certainly don't have the number of individuals living there. So when we control for the number of population, I think it's really holding its weight and punching above its weight, and again, adding to the greater regional impact that we're having. So that's NIH. And as a result of a lot of those innovative cutting edge research that's going on, you could see how the VCs have really been attracted to Connecticut. So if you look at those numbers, the number as raw numbers for total number of deals over the last 6 years, but if you look at the actual size of investment, so per capita invested, this year, 2021 year to date, we crossed 800, I believe that's $820 million. And then on per deal average, those numbers have continually climbed up. So we're seeing lots of deal flows come through due to the R&D, and that's resulted in, of course, the ecosystem growing with infrastructure, right? So if you look at some of our infrastructure that we have in the planning, we currently don't have, quite honestly, enough space to house a lot of these folks in Connecticut itself, and a lot of them are spin-outs of Yale. So 101 College Ave, which is a top left-hand corner building that we just broke ground in June, that's set to be delivered in 2023 summer. 10-story, 500,000 square feet facility, lab, office space that's going to come online and relieve some of those pressures. But in the meantime, we still need place for folks that are there growing to grow. So a couple of different pictures. On the right, top right is 115 Munson. It's a street. It's a former Winchester gun work. It's a facility, but that's been retrofitted majorly, and it's about 140,000. And before probably Thanksgiving comes online, we'll have JLL come later on and talk to that. It's probably going to be all leased out. So as soon as we could get them ready and get them retrofitted, the spaces are going faster than ever. 55 Church Street is another example. Really, the Route 34 corridor, if you have any space there that could be retrofitted, it is being retrofitted for life sciences, and spaces are taken up before they could be built out. Just one last thing, a couple of our support things. So we do have incubators. UConn has a TIP program, which is incubating and accelerating digital and life science companies. Biolabs is already committed to 101 College Avenue. They're coming in summer 2023. Connecticut Innovation Commons, which is a bio-CT endeavor. They have already a facility near the Pfizer facility in Groton. Another one is coming online just within months in New Haven. So as you can see, from R&D to venture capital to infrastructure, we are really on a positive trajectory and really looking forward to even playing a bigger role in the region.
Yeah, I think I'm so thrilled to hear about all of this growth. I was born and raised in Connecticut, went to Yale, been on the board of the Jackson Laboratory for years. So this is all just wonderful news. And I think the message here is that when you're making that investment in the research, that's the engine, right? Yep. Because all of the private investment, whether it's new companies or whether it's new lab formation, comes from that. And that's why this area is so strong, because we've got the strongest academic medical institutions in the world right here.
Truly, the smart people, the talenting, and goes back to the talent that's really contributing to the R&D, and that's really fueling everything else that goes with it. So. Yeah. And so there's brand new markets opening up. Jersey City is one of them, and couldn't be more excited about that. I've been doing a lot of work there. So Sanjeevani, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you. Tell us about what's going on in Jersey City.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Oh, sorry.
So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is going on specifically in Jersey City. I think Cathy told you some of the stats about New Jersey as a whole. I think most of you probably know how close Jersey City is to New York City. It's sometimes quicker to get to Jersey City than it is to get to the heart of New York City from some places in New York City. So we do have proximity on our side. I want to just tell you about some of the projects that we have going on and how the administration in Jersey City is supporting that. So 95 Green Street is a building that's under construction. It is in downtown Jersey City in Newport. So the story here is that So there was some zoning changes that were made to the redevelopment plans, not only in the redevelopment plan that this building is in, which is the Colgate redevelopment plan, but in neighboring redevelopment plans as well to support lab use. And it's just one example of how Jersey City is, we're adaptable. We are open to changes. We're open to changes that are brought forth by the market. We kind of welcome what we see as something that's a growing industry, and life sciences is one of those. So this is 95 Green Street, owned and managed by Thor Equities. This is Scitec City, which some of you might have heard about. We recently had its groundbreaking ceremony a few weeks ago. So this is a public land that was dedicated for the purpose of life sciences. So there was an interest in residential development here. This is a 16-acre site that's adjacent to Liberty Science Center in Liberty State Park. And Jersey City and the administration really took a bold action to take the opportunity to make a commitment to life sciences. So we challenged Liberty Science Center to conceive of a project to serve those larger goals, and we're happy to say that that project is beginning to come to fruition. So it's a $300 million project. The phase one will be EdgeWorks, which is a 7-story, 111 square foot incubation space. It will have lab, research spaces, office spaces, co-working areas for startups and entrepreneurs, state-of-the-art conference center, and a tech exhibition gallery. And the first tenant will be Israel's Sheba Medical Center. It's also going to have a K-12 school for 400 students. It's a public magnet STEM academy operated by the Hudson County Schools. It will also, phase one will also have Scholars Village, which will be developed by Alpine Residential. It'll be a residential housing for innovators, scientists, entrepreneurs, and STEM graduate students, and also a 5-acre outdoor park called Public Commons. So again, this is like another example of how we'll have education there. We'll have this space that not only startup companies can have their beginnings there, but because the talent is bred there, hopefully it will sustain the industry for years to come. And it was really like a public and administration decision to dedicate the space towards that purpose. And this, which many people here know a lot about this building, which is the Cove, Jersey City. It is a development by Argent Ventures. So this is an example of a private developer, really seeing the potential in Jersey City. It's a 1.6 million square foot laboratory space and 1,500 plus residential units, which will create that super cluster of development of life science space. It's really a prime location. It's near public transit and highways. And this developer, Argent Ventures, took on a substantial amount of environmental remediation as part of this project, because this is designated as a brownfield development area. So that is really seeing kind of the big picture about what this area and what Jersey City needs, not only this business sector, but also like the needs of the city and the environmental commitment to the environment that is needed for everybody that develops here or in Jersey City. So phase one will be 2 academic laboratory teaching facilities and a commercial life science building totaling over 800,000 square feet of space. Hope I'm getting this all right. Aside from lab, office, and teaching spaces, it will have a conference center, a cafe, and street-level retail. And this is also adjacent to the Jersey City Medical Center, which is also having an expansion. So really it is the super cluster of Jersey City Medical Center, the Cove, and Liberty Science Center, which are all really right next to each other. So Jersey City is welcoming of the life sciences. We're happy to be the place where that industry can grow.
Yeah, that rezoning was so important as the trigger, right, for opening up the possibility and opportunity of life sciences here and related tech. Because the Scitec City, the Cove, and the Medical Center, they form a 40-acre science and technology corridor now that is both for research, but also for clinical delivery. And so the combination and proximity of those two things together in a ground-up development in a live, work, play environment is actually a unique asset in the greater New York metro area, at least in this area. Yeah. And I think that's what Argent saw, basically, the potential there when they decided to go with this use. So kudos. And now we've got Bridget Gibbons that's going to tell us, who is going to tell us what's going on in Westchester County.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and I do want to start out by thanking Carolyn and her team for the work that they've done to really highlight the region and the strength of the region, and that includes Westchester in a big way. It's given us a platform to really tell our story. And to them take today's this opportunity to really educate folks as to the tremendous assets that Westchester County has, including not only proximity but also the foundation and organizations that we have in Westchester, which are a great platform for us to continue to build our biosciences sector. So we have, if we could put up my slides, that would be great.
Bridget, I'm not sure we got slides from you.
Okay, yes, I did send them, but
okay,
that's
I'm sorry.
okay. I can just
can
just speak. Yep, that's fine. I can just speak to the topic. So, so we have an abundance of academic institutions. So NYU Stern, Pace University. They have a College of Health Professionals and the Seidenberg School of Computer Science. SUNY Purchase, Sarah Lawrence College has an MS program in human genetics. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have, many, many more academic institutions. We have all the major hospital systems are here in Westchester County: Memorial Sloan Kettering, Montefiore, New York Presbyterian, Westchester Medical Center, White Plains Hospital, Burke Rehabilitation, and many, many more. So we have a very strong healthcare sector in Westchester County. It's our fastest growing sector, with biosciences really kind of coming behind that. We have the Burke Neurological Research Institute, which is the only research institute in the U.S. dedicated to finding treatments for folks with devastating disorders like brain and spinal cord injury and Alzheimer's and stroke and cerebral palsy and others. So Burke is a really shining star. We're very proud of that institution. We have clinical trial network with a $5 million New York State grant. We established the network a couple of years ago. We have a Biosciences Accelerator program, which we have currently running. We have 12 startups in our Biosciences Accelerator program. They're drawn from within Westchester County, but also within the region, the startups. We also have an incubator at the New York Medical College, which is a thriving center for our startups. And we currently have 10 startups in our life sciences incubator. And we have real estate. Our real estate sector is growing in terms of biosciences. We have lots of folks focused on, determining what the needs are. And, one of the great assets of Westchester is we have space. So we are looking to determine, where we can build labs, where we can have the step out space, where we can have graduation space. So that's all kind of in progress, but we certainly have the capacity, and we know that there's the need, that we can fill those spaces when we have them. We have mapped our ecosystem, and if you go to our website, westchestercatalyst.com, you'll see a map of the biosciences sector and all of our assets. We have 19 drug development companies, 13 medical device companies, 10 instrumentation and equipment manufacturers, 5 CROs, 47 academic and research institutions, and some of those I mentioned earlier, 13 disease and patient foundations, 25 hospitals, 18 startups have completed our Biosciences Accelerator program. We have 10 startups in the BioWing, as I mentioned, and we have many, many other startups that are not affiliated with either of those structures. And we are working hard on our workforce development. We have recently signed a memorandum of understanding with Manhattan College in the Bronx, and they will be providing engineering and science training for our workforce to really help fill that gap so we can support the growing companies in Westchester County. We're working also on incentives and investments. We are a county and not a state, so we don't have all the assets that others around us do have, but we are focused on building up our investor capacity, incentives that the county can offer to our startups. We know that they need support. We know that they may not be profitable for up to 10 years. So we have to build out that infrastructure in Westchester County, but it's all in progress. We're doing a study of our supply chain to understand what businesses we can attract to Westchester to really help fill that supply chain. You know, our large employer in the county, Regeneron, we know that they purchase supplies from outside the region, so we'd like to build up that you know, the supply chain here in Westchester, so that more of that, you know, the supplies are delivered to our companies here are from Westchester County. Yeah, and as I mentioned, really focused on graduation space and real estate, and we have lots of big projects coming in the pipeline. There's a project that many of you may have heard of. It's called the North 60. It's recently been rebranded to the North 80. It's 60 acres of county property that we lease to a private developer who's going to be building a biosciences campus. And the additional 20 acres is property that he owns. So it's a 80-acre, and it's right in the center of the county, and it's right adjacent to Regeneron and other really important biosciences players in Westchester County. The North 80 will have a total of 3 million square feet devoted to the biosciences campus in medical offices, biotech and research. There'll be a children's science and education center, retail, and a hotel. So we're really looking forward to that coming down the pike and getting that online, and that really will help us to build out our like a physical geographical cluster in Westchester County. And also Regeneron, you know, Regeneron was critical, and many of our biosciences companies in Westchester County were critical to the COVID-19 response, providing, you know, therapies, and Regeneron, you know, really led the way with their Cove treatment. And so they may have heard about it in the news that particular people took that treatment and recovered very quickly from COVID-19. So, you know, we're really proud of Regeneron. They launched in Westchester, and now they've just announced a $1.8 billion upgrade to their Tarrytown campus that will expand their campus by roughly 900,000 square feet. And they're going to be hiring 1,000 new employees over the next 5 years. So we know we need to help them and develop our workforce to really fill those positions. And the project will take place in 2 phases over the next 6 years, bringing on new preclinical manufacturing, process development suites, labs, and offices. So we're really, you know, Regeneron is a real engine and a real attraction in Westchester County. And we're really proud of them and really kind of the spin-off effect from that organization. So we have lots of work to do, I think, in Westchester to really, you know, get us to where we want to be from an incentive and real estate perspective. But we do believe that our proximity to the city and our kind of central location in the region, you know, allows us to really we're well positioned for great success. Yeah, and those are my comments.
That's a wealth of information, Bridget. Thank you very much. And we'll find your slides and we will insert them into the slide presentation that will be available on our website. So if you want to come back later and take a look, you can listen to what Bridget says and you can look at her slides posted there. But I think one of the most exciting things, we had Regeneron during the pandemic. They came and spoke to our community about what they were doing and the treatment that they were developing. But they're a story of a startup company that, you know, started in an incubator in Westchester and then grew and grew, took over the entire campus where they were located, and now they're building an even bigger campus. So it just goes to show you that when a company is successful, there is the possibility for a lot of growth and new employment. Great. Does anyone have any questions that they might want to ask? We can probably only take 1 or 2, but love for you to have the opportunity. How often do you get the caliber of people sitting here together? Nobody? Okay, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate that overview, and thanks for setting up our day.
Thank you.
Thank you.